So, here's the deal. People like Undertale, right? And people's favorite character tends to be Mr. Undertale himself, Sans. Nothing's wrong with that, he's an interesting character. However, the thing that bothers me the most about this is how people get his character completely wrong. Now put your pitchforks down, hear me out. Sans admittingly is a mysterious character. We know little about him. We only know as much as we know about Papyrus. Hell, their only backstory that is mentioned by other characters is that they showed up one day and asserted themselves. It's not wrong to want to fill in the gaps for this character. However, when trying to interpret this character, it's often a bit much. Suddenly, Sans is an overprotective, self-deprecative, emotional mess that hates every human for some reason. No longer does he just hang around outside his station making dumb jokes or slides whoopee cushion under unsuspecting victims, but now he's crying about how you killed his brother last run. He wants you dead because of how you reset and reload, and is suffering because he's the only character that remembers this. This isn't Sans. This is someone completely different. So then, who is Sans? Well, let's start from the moment we meet him. When we first meet him, he intentionally hides himself in the shadows, trying to frighten the player until the inevitable confrontation at the gate. He catches them off guard with a whoopee cushion that goes on for like 7 seconds. Listen to this, he literally goes on for a while. Immediately after, he asks you to stand beside a lamp where he makes bad jokes. Afterwards, Sans takes a back seat, letting Papyrus do his thing while at the same time keeping an eye on the human. When he's seen with Papyrus, Sans only speaks a couple of times. Papyrus mostly carries the conversation, with Sans occasionally assisting his brother on the latest contraption or just making more bad jokes. He's like a sidekick to the hero, just there to help, not to take the spotlight. Now, I know what you're all thinking. What about the time in the genocide route where Sans tells you you'll have a bad time? He only says that as a means to intimidate you, in order to not kill Papyrus and continue on your path. Hell, if you do spare Papyrus in that run, he even says thanks, he appreciates it. The only other time he tries to intimidate or frighten you is the date at the Mettaton Hotel where he tells you you'd be dead where you stand, had it not been for his promise with Toriel. We can gather from this that he doesn't really hate humans, but just likes to mess with people in messed up ways, like when you first meet him. Had somebody start to get on his bad side, he'd use this intimidation to try and steer someone from making a bad choice. Next time we see him and are able to conversate with him, it's at the Grillby date. There, if you call his brother uncool, Sans defends him. He says it feels nice to have somebody call you out on being lazy, even if it's far from the truth. From what I know, this is where people tend to source his edginess, that he isn't lazy. Sure, there are aspects where he admittedly isn't. However, he only isn't lazy when it comes to people he cares about. Talking to one of the regulars in Grillby's reveals that he reads car magazines on sentry duty. And who gets a car in the pacifist ending of Undertale? Back in Snowdin Forest, Sans says that he and Papyrus made the battle body you have to see the latter wearing. Hell, in Waterfall, where Sans is with a telescope, when you call Papyrus, he states how Sans likes science stuff. In the Mettaton Hotel, if you read one of the billboards in the restaurant, Sans is listed as a comedian performing for the night. We already know that Sans has a bunch of sentry jobs, the one in Snowdin, Waterfall, and Hotland. With being a comedian, we'd assumed he'd rank in a lot of money. Which is true. During a conversation with Papyrus and Undyne in front of the former's house, Papyrus states how Sans is the one who pays the house bills, despite being incredibly lazy. During Papyrus's date, upon inspecting the oven, Papyrus notes how Sans tried to bake a pie, describing it as a quiche. We know this is a pie because he describes it being made with a sugary, non-egg substance. Papyrus also mentions when you call him at Nasiblook Snail Farm that Sans bought snail-shaped pasta recently. Who else do we know makes pies and likes snails? So from this, we can come to a few conclusions. To a point, Sans' comment in Grillby's is true. He does a lot behind the scenes with paying house bills, maintaining 4 jobs at once, helping create Papyrus' battle body, and even making a pie. However, he's still incredibly lazy. We all know the infamous scene where Sans tells you that you'd be dead where you stand had you never made that promise with Toriel, right? Well, that promise was to watch over and protect you. As we all know, no matter how many times we die in Undertale, Sans never intervenes. We know Sans does watch you outside of Snowdin because in the battle with Shyren. If you sing and create a concert with her, Sans is in the background selling tickets. However, if you kill them instead, a hooded figure watches from the distance. We can conclude that this is Sans because aside from River Person, Sans is the only character with a hood in the game. Why doesn't he intervene though? Well, we know Sans is aware of resetting, saving, and loading. Outside of his genocide fight in the pacifist run, when you reload, he can tell based on the look of your face that you heard him say his speech before, which theoretically should be impossible. Through his eyes, he's saying it for the first time. However, when faced with the knowledge of this, he doesn't seem mad. Hell, he finds a way to entertain himself through it. He tells you code words after code words only to prank you in his own room by making you walk on the treadmill. However, in the genocide round, he idly vents to you about the knowledge of an anomaly creating resets. He assumes it's you, which it could be you, Flowey, or both, and is pretty upset about it. I think he's only upset because the power in this case isn't being used for good, but rather the destruction of the entire underground. In every other instance, he doesn't seem to mind. In Snowden, when Papyrus notes how he feels Frisk is familiar when you reload, Sans jokes about it and makes the comment, "Do you not know who you know?" He isn't bothered with it at all. So we can conclude that despite being lazy in a lot of areas, the places he does puts effort in are connected to the people he cares about. He has jobs that he does because his brother pushed him to get them. Sans partook in baking because of the lady behind the door he talks to all the time. And if we count where Papyrus says the dog food in Alphys' lab is familiar due to seeing it in Sans' room, he also has connections with Alphys, perhaps being friends or even knowing of the Amalgamates. So where do these misconceptions of Sans come from? Why do people think he hates humans, remembers resets, and is depressed? Well, to be fair, Sans exhibits symptoms of depression. Like stated, he's lazy in just about every area, putting forth minimal effort. His room's a mess. The secret room in the back of the house, too, seems abandoned. He hides everything about himself unless provoked or close enough to share, and even then, he doesn't share everything. Papyrus himself says he never tells anybody anything. He can't exactly say he has depression, though. If he does, it may not be clinical or severe. However, I'm no medical professional, so don't take my word for it. However, with remembering resets, Sans isn't the only one to note how familiar situations are. Like many characters, he only feels a sense of deja vu. Toriel comments on how sometimes she feels like she knows the humans who fall, despite only meeting them for the first time. Papyrus comments about how Frisk seems awfully familiar. Undyne laments about wanting to be friends with you. Asgore nods and seems understanding when you tell him he's killed you. However, nobody outright remembers what happened, except Flowey. Aside from him, nobody remembers. Only deja vu. I think the trope of Sans hating humans only came up from how he threatens Frisk in the genocide route and how he tells them they'd be dead had he not made the promise. Otherwise, I'm not sure where that comes from. And that's my essay on Mr. Undertale. I don't have much else to say. Oops.